اور محمد والے محمد صلوات محمد والے سلام کے کچھ اشعار، اس کے بعد پھر مرثیہ۔ کیا کیا ستم حسین کے دل پر گزر گئے، کیا کیا ستم حسین کے دل پر گزر گئے، اکبر گزر گئے، علی اصغر گزر گئے، کیا کیا ستم حسین کے دل پر گزر گئے۔ مشکل تھی راہ حق میں ہر ایک منزل بقا، مشکل تھی راہ حق میں ہر ایک منزل بقا، لے کر علی کا نام 72 گزر گئے، کیا کیا ستم حسین کے دل پر گزر گئے۔ فوجوں کو چیرتے ہوئے عباس نامدار، فوجوں کو چیرتے ہوئے عباس نامدار، میدان سے مثل ہے در صفدر گزر گئے، کیا کیا ستم حسین کے دل پر گزر گئے۔ جب یاد آ گئی کبھی زینب کو کربلا، جب یاد آ گئی کبھی زینب کو کربلا، کیا کیا نظر کے سامنے منظر گزر گئے، کیا کیا ستم حسین کے دل پر گزر گئے۔ ارمان لاکھوں دل میں تھی مادر لیے ہوئے، ارمان لاکھوں دل میں تھی مادر لیے ہوئے، دن بیاہ کے جب آئے تو اکبر گزر گئے، کیا کیا ستم حسین کے دل پر گزر گئے، اکبر گزر گئے، علی اصغر گزر گئے، کیا کیا ستم حسین کے دل پر گزر گئے۔ صلوات علی محمد وعلی محمد۔ فاتحہ پڑھیں۔ محمد وآل محمد صلوات. قید میں مولا تقی شام و سحر روتے تھے. قید میں مولا تقی شام و سحر روتے تھے. روکتے بھی تھے نگہبان مگر روتے تھے. یاد شبیر میں جب پیٹ کے سر روتے تھے. در و دیوار کا پھٹتا تھا جگر روتے تھے. در و دیوار کا پھٹتا تھا جگر روتے تھے. مرتے مرتے بھی زباں پر شاہ صفدر ہی رہے. مدت قید میں عابد کے برابر ہی رہے. مدت قید میں عابد کے برابر ہی رہے. ان کے رونے سے ہزاروں کا جگر نرم ہوا. معتصم پہلے ہی جلتا تھا پر اب اور جلا. مل کے دربان سے آخر وہ انہیں زہر دیا. جس کے پیتے ہی کلیجے میں گڑا تیر قضا. جس کے پیتے ہی کلیجے میں گڑا تیر قضا. کچھ وصیت کے بھی لکھنے کی نہ مہلت پائی. قید میں وارث کاظم نے شہادت پائی. قید میں وارث کاظم نے شہادت پائی. کون زندان میں اپنا تھا جو ان کو روتا. بے کسی لاشائے مظلوم پہ کرتی تھی بکا. 9 بزرگ آپ کے فردوس میں کرتے تھے عزا. ایک بی بی کی یہاں آئی یہ پردرد صدا. ایک بی بی کی یہاں آئی یہ پردرد صدا. لاش پر رونے کو بیٹا نہ کوئی بھائی ہے. ہائے بچے تجھے غربت میں اجل آئی ہے. ہائے بچے تجھے غربت میں اجل آئی ہے. یا نہ مادر ہے نہ بی بی ہے نہ بیٹی نہ بہن. لاش کو ڈھانکنے والا نہ کوئی مرد نہ زن. اب یہ زنداں کے نگہباں کا ہے دل دوز سخن. تھا وہ طفل مدنی جس نے دیا غسل و کفن، تھا وہ طفل مدنی جس نے دیا غسل و کفن۔ سب نے دیکھا کہ وہ یوں پیٹ کے سر روتا ہے، جس طرح باپ کے ماتم میں پسر روتا ہے، جس طرح باپ کے ماتم میں پسر روتا ہے۔ قبر اطہر میں اتاری گئی جب لاش امام، نور سے ہو گئی روشن لحد پاک تمام، پھر کیا رو کے کہیں سے اسی بی بی نے کلام، رونے والے میرے شبیر کے تجھ پر ہو سلام، رونے والے میرے شبیر کے تجھ پر ہو سلام۔ خلد سے سارے بزرگوں کو یہاں لائی ہے، دفن کرنے تیری میت کو بطول آئی ہے، دفن کرنے تیری میت کو بطول آئی ہے، قید میں مولا۔ صلوات علی محمد و آل محمد۔
Jazakallah Jafar Bhai. For his health and well-being and continued tawfiqat, please recite a very loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Before I give the mic to Maulana, I wanted to recognize the sponsor of tonight's Majlis. That is the family of Sister Narjis Khan. For her health and well-being and continued tawfiqat, please recite a very loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alih. And she had a request for a Surah Fatiha for the following mu'mineen, marhumin Mir Yusuf Ali, Zahra Begum, Sakina bint Muhammad, Arif Ali, Hussein Raza. For these marhumin and for all of the marhumin of our community, please recite a Surah Fatiha after a salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa And now I will give the mic to Maulana Faezi. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
فاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا محمد آل محمد واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وجعلناهم أئمة يهدون بأمرنا صلوات بسم الله على. Dear brothers and sisters in Iman, we are gathered to commemorate the martyrdom of our ninth Imam, Imam Muhammad Taqi Al Jawad alayhi salatu wassalam. Salli ala Muhammad, ali Muhammad. When we talk about our A'imma, mainly we talk about the different phases of development of our community of believers. Our A'imma alayhimus salatu wassalam were the founders and organizers of our community, and they were the teachers, guides, instructors, leaders, and motivators, and also the inspirations for our community. Right after the demise of our glorious prophet or noble prophet, our community came under the oppressive regimes who were committed to wipe us out as a community, and they did everything what was in their power to drive us out from the community of believers, and they made sure that we are deprived from our legitimate rights, liberty, the freedom of faith, and the other rights which everybody else in the Muslim Ummah was enjoying, but we were not allowed to express ourselves freely or to practice actually our faith freely. That's why the entire duration of the lives of our A'imma, beginning from Amirul Mu'mineen until the time of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam, is a time of taqiyya. We can't say that, meaning some time of some A'imma was the taqiyya, but in other times they were free. Mainly in all these years, in all those times, from the time of Amirul Mu'mineen, meaning after the demise of Prophet, until the Shahadat of Imam Hassan al-Askari. Mainly this whole era and this whole time period is the time of taqiyya. So if we see our A'imma, for example, sitting in Masjidun Nabi, for example, we always quote the life of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir and Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, holding those big classes in Masjidun Nabi and having up to 4,000 students. It doesn't mean that they were free to call people toward them as the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, or they were free to say that we don't acknowledge, for example, these tyrant rulers and their rule over the Muslim Ummah, and we don't recognize them, or we don't, meaning we don't give any kind of room to them to continue what they are doing. A'imma were not supposed to say those things openly from the pulpit or from member or in their classes. And it was very difficult time. On one hand, you have to maintain your own claim that you are the Imam, you are the legitimate leader, and you are not giving the allegiance to these tyrants. And on the other hand, you are not free to denounce them openly, and you are not free to call them, for example, the A'immatul Jawr and illegitimate, for example, rulers or leaders, or the what you call Khalifas or Amirs of the time. Sometime when our Zakireen or presenters, they sit on the member and they talk, they create the impression that A'imma alayhimus salatu wassalam were very openly, meaning in opposition with these leaders or these khulafa or these what you call the people who were in control of the Muslim Ummah. And it seems like there were two circles in the Muslim empire, and the A'imma had their own free following and their own life with their Shias, and they were openly against the governments, and the governments had their own following. As today we are Shia and Sunni, for example, in two circles, living in many communities, in many countries, side by side, and we don't recognize each other's, for example, khulafa or imams, and we have freedom to express our views about each other or about each other's leadership. That was not the case in the time of A'imma. A'imma alayhimus salatu wassalam would speak more freely and openly in secret circles only to their faithful Shias. And A'imma would tell them that these guys are not legitimate, and we don't recognize their leadership, and we are not under their allegiance, and you guys need to be also very careful. But A'imma would say those kind of things in secret circles. A'imma would say those kind of things only to those who were tested and reliable Shias. But A'imma would not make those public opinions or public announcements in public. Matter of fact, if you read the history, some of these tyrant rulers, they summoned our A'imma in Damascus or in Baghdad or in Marv, and A'imma were not able to refuse and say that since you are illegitimate, for example, ruler, and we don't believe you and we have no obligations toward you, so mind your business, and we don't want to honor your request, or we are not going to cooperate with you, or we are not going to listen to this. For example, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir was not able to say no in his time to these rulers of his time like Hisham, and when he was summoned by the government that you and your son Imam Sadiq have to come here and Khalifa wants to see you and meet you, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir with Imam Ja'far Sadiq, they came from Medina all the way to Damascus, and they stayed there. At one point, I think I had mentioned all the details of their travel, that initially the government was very disrespectful to Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. They invited them, and then instead of giving them the state kind of what you call welcome, or to receive them very in a dignified way, they just overlooked them. They said, find a place in Damascus wherever you can stay, and we will let you know when you will be asked to come and meet the Khalifa. And purposely they say that they created a situation where Imam alayhi salatu wasalam had to go and stay in those times they had these kind of, like today you call motels or those kind of places, they were used to call sarai, places where, meaning the travelers or the strangers would go and stay, for example. So Imam alayhi salatu wasalam ended up going into a place which was not up to his status. And Imam stayed there in Damascus with his son Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. And then after 2 days or 3 days or maybe more, then the government says that yes, now Khalifa is ready to receive you. While Khalifa had invited him and insisted him to travel all the way from Medina to come to the Damascus. And then there are discussions and stories that what happened between this in this visit. Similarly, we all know that Imam Musa al-Kadhim, for example, he was used to live in Medina, but then he is brought to Baghdad, and Imam Muhammad Taqi, for example, or Imam Ali al-Rida alayhi salatu wasalam was a resident of Medina, but then Mamun brought him to Marv, and Imam is not in a position to say no. Sometimes we need to also connect the dots and think at our own also that what was going on. Meaning today, for example, if we are free and if there is a freedom in a society, and if a government, for example, because I am following the news of Pakistan, for example, and I know what's going on over there. So if a government calls a meeting, if the Prime Minister, for example, he calls a meeting, all parties meeting, and the opposition leaders who don't, for example, like him or who don't like to cooperate with him, they just boycott the meeting. They say, well, you have your meeting, but we are not going to attend it. And perfectly they can do it. And there are certain other societies, other countries, that the government, the president or prime minister asks for a meeting, and the opposition leader says, no, we are not going to participate. But that kind of freedom was not there in the time of our A'imma. That's why it is very difficult sometimes when we talk with Sunni friends and when we tell that our A'imma didn't make bay'at to those zalim rulers and our A'imma were not under their allegiance, or our A'imma were not in their favor, or there was no cordial relationships between our A'imma and between those tyrant rulers. The Sunni historian or Sunni scholar will say that, how can you say that? Here you see there are visits are being made and the meetings are being convened and the gifts are being exchanged and all that was happening, and you say that your Aimma never recognized them and your Aimma never worked with them and they never accepted them. So it is a difficult job as today for us to explain that how complex the situation was and how much difficulties and hardships were there for our Aimma to say no or to make these claims openly. It was more difficult for our Aimma actually at that time to walk on that very tight rope. You will appreciate the skills of your Aimma, guts of your Aimma, and the leadership of your Aimma, who knew that the time was very difficult and they couldn't give their hand in the hand of a tyrant, and at the same time they don't have the luxury of just calling a jihad against them or a boycott against them. Aimma didn't have that luxury. It happened only in the time of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, and that was again because Yazid insisted for bay'at. If Yazid wouldn't insist for bay'at, then Imam Hussain would also live as Imam Ali lived in the time of those three, or Imam Hassan as Imam Hassan lived in the time of Muawiyah, or as our later Aimma, they lived in the time of those later Khulafa. Because there was some room to exist and there was some room to maneuver. But Yazid was so tyrant, so emotional, and so bad individual that he doesn't want any little room to Imam Hussain even to exist without making bay'at on his hand. It is just like, do bay'at or we will chop your head. So Imam Hussain didn't have any room, and this is how the Karbala came in existence. Sometimes people say that, it's a question also, they say that your Aimma, you always say that they had always same opinion, they had same way, they had same position, they were 12 in number, but their policy, their halal, haram, everything was always the same. I'm just first posing question in front of you, which our sometimes Sunni brothers, they pose this question, and then I will answer. They say, you claim that all of them, they had the same position. We see Ali's position with those three, and then we see the position of Imam Hassan with Muawiyah, for example, and then we see the position of Imam Zainul Abidin, Imam Muhammad Baqir, Imam Ja'far Sadiq, Imam Musa Qadim, Imam Ali ibn Musa Riza, all the way until Imam Hassan Askari. And in between we see Imam Hussain. So, can you claim that all of them, they had the same position? Can you prove that all of them, their standpoint was the same? And then they make a comment, they say that actually Imam Hussain tried, and since it didn't work, then the later Aimma didn't bother to go on the way of Imam Hussain. Everybody loved Imam Hussain and Imam Hussein's way, but nobody went on the way of Imam Hussain. That's a question, that is a criticism. I don't know whether you have thought about it or not, or whether you have heard this question or this criticism before or not. But answer is very simple. And answer is that actually, if you analyze the history, you will not see any change in the policy of our Aimma. The policy of our Aimma from Ali until Askari remained consistent and the same. The only difference which we see is in the policy of those so-called khulafa, because the one who changed the policy, that was Yazid. The policy of Abu Bakr and Umar and Usman, and later in Muawiyah, and later the khulafa of Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas was the same. That when they find out that these people are not going to do our bay'at, they just left them alone. They try to create issues for them, problems for them, restrictions for them. They created issues, they kind of made difficult for them to manage their following or their activities, but they didn't push them to the point where you have only one choice, either bayat, either shahadat. This change was only, it took place in the time of Yazid. And when Yazid changed his policy, so Hussein also responded to him. Now after Imam Hussein, no ruler of Banu Umayyah or Banu Abbas followed the policy of Yazid. You are understanding that? They didn't follow the policy of Yazid, so that our Imam has to do the same thing what Imam Hussein did. Everybody went back to the policy of Abu Bakr and Umar and Usman and Muawiyah. And our Aimma alayhi salatu wasalam also went back to the policy of Amirul Mu'mineen and Imam Hassan Mujtaba, and they remain on their position. So if any of these Imams was pushed and pressed that you have to do one of these two things, everybody would become Hussein. Everybody would become Hussein. But that was not the case. But other than that, my brothers and sisters, Imamat was very difficult office. Your own followers, they come to you so emotional. Maula, why are you quiet? Maula, why you don't announce jihad? Maula, why don't you stand up? We are so many and we should go and fight them. And Imam would say no. Imam would say no. Because of variety of reasons. It was not in the best interest of Islam. It was not in the best interest of Ummah. And it was also, Imam knew that these people who are saying that Imam stand up and we want to go with you, Imam knew that these people will not be able to pull through. And when they will be tested, they will do the same thing what people have done earlier in Karbala, in Kufa. So Aimma never had that kind of faith. And Aimma would say no. But then you know what would happen? When leader is reasonable and has a rational approach, then people start thinking that he is coward. People start thinking that he is weak. People start thinking that, oh, maybe there is some kind of give and take between him and the government. And this is how it happened always, that a number of Shias always broke away from the Imam of time and made a separate group. They would become part of those people that who were fighting against governments. Like Zaydis, for example, at one time it was very popular front. Zaydis, Zayd Shaheed, he stood up against the government. He was the brother of, as you know, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam. He was son of Imam Zainul Abidin. And the emotional Shias and those Shias that either they were very emotional or they were in a very difficult time and life and death had become kind of equal to them, they didn't stand with Imam Muhammad al-Baqir and his rational approach. They broke away from Imam Muhammad Baqir and they went to Zayd in his camp, because Zayd was asking, we will fight. And you know that that call of fight, call of procession, call of protest, call of those kind of things has more kind of appeal to the young people or emotional people or common people. He is a man. See, he is just sitting home doing nothing and telling people be patient and patient and patient. And you see, he is calling everybody out. Go and fight. So he is comrade. He is fighter. He is brave. He is man. And then what happens? Everybody goes there. There was a time when Zaid has larger gathering, larger follower than Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. Majority of Shias left Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. And they went in the camp of Zaid. Because Zaid was calling for fight, demonstration, protest, slogans, revenge, reaction. And masses always like these things. So I'm just putting the challenge of your imams in front of you. That can you imagine that how much pressures your imams have faced from your own community? Forget about those zalim hukamrans and rulers and tyrant rulers and the Banu Umayyah and the Banu Abbas. Let us talk about Shias. Shia, community of Shias. Abused imams. Those were so-called Shias who attacked on Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba. Attacked on him and injured him because they were mad at him. Why did you make the treaty with Muawiyah? Why didn't you stand up? Why didn't you fight? Why did you compromise? And then still calling themselves Shias. While their job was that whatever their Imam has decided, if they really were truly Shias, their job was that we have to be with you and under you. You fight, we will fight with you. You may compromise, we will make compromise. That is the leadership. So Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, a Shia comes and he says salam to him. He says, Assalamu alayka ya mudhill al-mu'mineen. Instead of saying Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-mu'mineen, he comes and he taunts. He says, Assalamu alayka ya mudhill al-mu'mineen. Salam upon you, O the one who has humiliated the believers. Who is saying that? An emotional Shia who is mad at Imam. Imam replies back to him. Imam says, take it easy. I saved you and I saved many like you. And what I can see as Imam, you can't see. What I can see as Imam or as a leader, you can't see. So, who was humiliating Imam? A Sunni guy? Banu Umayyah? Banu Abbas? Or Shia? He was Shia from the camp of Imam Hassan and coming and speaking to Imam Hassan in this way. And then the same very people, as I said, they looted Imam's camp and they injured him. And similarly, as I said, they left Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, Imam Masoom, appointed Imam, and they went in the camp of Zaid. Because for them, Zaid was revolutionary. And Imam Muhammad al-Baqir was coward, scared, sitting at home, doing nothing. And they had the same criticism against Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq. Oh, you are a teacher, you are sitting, teaching classes, all this halal, haram, wudu, namaz, this, that. Why are not you calling for jihad? And then similarly, if you want to study, I'm just telling you that read sometime your own history. The Shia community was not easy community. But again, I don't blame the community because this community was actually going through it was under persecution. This community was being boycotted. This community, the government was very much kind of creating problems for this community. This community didn't have equal opportunity for job, for work, for business, or for so many other things. And people would lose the patience. People would lose the patience. They would say, live or die. This is how common people think. Or the same very people, when imams would tell them that no, we are not going to fight, then you know what people do? Then they would say, then we should join the government. Then we should endorse the government. Then we should at least be part of government. If we cannot fight them, then we should join them. This is how normally there is English saying also, that if you cannot fight them, join them. So then people would say that if we are not supposed to fight them, then we should go and join them. And your imams would tell them that as we cannot fight them, we cannot join them either. We cannot join a zalim. We cannot join a ghasib. We cannot support them because they are corrupt. And you know, this is very difficult situation for a regular man, ordinary man, who is not trained properly, who is not educated properly, who this kind of stand that I am not going to give my allegiance and I am also not going to join, and I will stay out of this, I will stay alone, I will not participate in this society or in this system. This is the most difficult thing. Common people, they cannot maintain that. And this is why the history of the Shia is that every time numbers of Shi'i community would leave and make a new firqa or a new group. It kept happening. Then the history of Shi'i community is very interesting. Unfortunately, our scholars, our zakireen, our people who sit on the pulpit, they don't mention this part of the history. They only give you the bad parts of the history of the other community. And we enjoy that, and Nara Hedri, and lot of emotional response. And we love to hear. But we don't know our own history. And then you know that what happened with this Imam whose Shahadat we are now commemorating, how tough time his father was given, Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salatu wassalam. Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida alayhi salatu wassalam had, as you know, he had only one son. His children, he had only one son. And that son was also born in a later years of the life of Imam al-Rida. One of the reasons that those Waqifis, the people who went with, they said Imamat ended at the Imam Musa Kazim and Imam Ali Riza is not Imam. One of their argument was that if Imamat is supposed to continue, then why Imam Ali Riza doesn't have any child? Why he doesn't have any son? He is almost in his late 40s and he doesn't have any child. So it means in those days, you know, 60s were the end of it. Most of the people would die in their early 60s or mid 60s, and he was already in his late 40s and he had no son, he had no child. So they would say that it seems that if he didn't have a child until now, he will not have any child, and it means he will not have any successor. It means there won't be any new Imam. So it means those guys are right who say that Imamat ended at Imam Musa al-Qadhi. The Seveners, the Waqifis. And people would come to Imam Riza and they say, Mawla, what is happening? What's going on? Why don't you have any child? You know, sometimes, meaning people, they think that here anybody or about Aimma, that we think that whenever we have issues or when we want child or when we want to have something, let's go to Mashhad, let's go to Najaf, let's go to Karbala and ask Imam that Imam give me a son. And I came all the way from Chicago to Mashhad for asking a son. And here Imam himself is in his late 40s. Of course, he was married in his 20s. He doesn't have son. And enemies are making a big issue out of it. And his own followers are leaving him. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam would say that, take it easy. I will have a son. Allah will give me. Allah will give me. Imam doesn't say, I will make. Imam says, Allah will give me. And my son is going to be the most blessed son in entire Ahlul Bayt. Among the Ahlul Bayt, no son is going to be that blessed as my son is going to be. Wait. And then what happens? Imam Muhammad, Taqi Al Jawad, gets birth at the house of Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salam. So, at least one issue is solved. Now, Imam has son. I am reading Shia history, I am not reading Sunni history. Now you know what happened? The same very people who had the problem, now they come, they say, are you sure this is your son? Are you sure this is your son? And who are these? They are Shias. These are Shias. They believe in his imamat. They believe in the imamat of Imam Musa al-Kazim and Imam Sadiq and Imam Baqir and all that. And they are now doubting the legitimacy of the son. Maybe you have adopted someone from somewhere or something happened, but we don't believe that all of a sudden you never had son so far in all these years, and now under all this pressure and all this criticism, here now you have a son. It is written in the Shia history that Imam alayhi salatu wasalam arranged. In those times there was no DNA. There was no DNA or there was no other way to prove. The only system in that time was that there were some people who were known the experts of ilm qiyafa. They would look at the features of the child and the father, looks, bones, joints, face, eyes, ears, everything, and they would give the expert opinion whether this is his son or not. I don't have much time, but I will very quickly I will tell you that that company or that group of people or those experts were invited, and in a garden, 2 or 3 people, just in the disguise of gardener, including Imam, were put in the garden. You do gardening, you go and water these trees or take these what belche ko kya kehte hain ji shovel, and get meaning busy with these 3, 4, 5 people in the garden, just same attire, same looking, and this child will be presented to these experts, and we will ask the experts that whose son is this one. So the experts looked at son, looked at the child, then they go and look at these 4 or 5 people who are working in the garden. They looked at their face, their features, their bones, their joints, their meaning whatever it was their system, and they come and they put their hand on the shoulder of Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salatu wassalam. He is the father of this boy. Who put Imam Riza in that situation? Sunnis? Wahhabis? The government of Banu Umayyah? The government of Bani Abbas? So-called Shias? Who put Imam Riza in such a situation where he has to prove that this is my son? So that was one big problem which one of our Imam faced. I know it is difficult to hear this, but sometimes my brothers and sisters, it is good to, हमारे पंजाब में कहते हैं अपनी चारपाई के नीचे भी जो है वो डांग फेरनी चाहिए. We need to know who we are. And many times when we become very emotional, when we see some wrong things in community, people fighting against one another, or when they fight against their alim or their leader, or in Iran or revolution or something, people think, oh, this is something very new, and how it is happening. Oh, Baba, worst things have happened in this community. Worst thing than this have happened in this community. This is community that which has all that past and luggage. This crisis is over. Now we are entering in a new crisis. And what is that crisis? The first time in the history, Shias are entering into a new crisis. That Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam is martyred, and the next Imam is only 8 years old. This happened first time. So far, none of Imams was that young. Imam Ali was, at that time when they created a big issue, he was 33 years old. And you know those people with white hairs, they didn't accept him as the Imam or Khalifa, young man. He was 33. Imam Hassan Mujtaba was more than 40. Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam was in his 50s when he entered in the office. Imam Zainul Abidin was about 23. And later on A'imma. But none of the A'imma so far was that young, 8 years old, and you are Imam of the age and Imam of the time and the leader of the community. Community is again now in crisis. And very many people hesitated and resisted to come and acknowledge the imamat of Imam Muhammad Taqi Al Jawad. So, shahadat Imam ka sirf akela dard nahi hai. That now we will put all the blame on Fazl and Mamun or this, what was his name, the Mustasim. And we will say that those guys, but what happened with Imam when he entered in the office of Imamat? Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, he lost his father in that young age. He is only 8 years old, and now his own community is not ready to accept him as Imam. He's too young boy. So, my brothers and sisters, then our senior ulama, they came and they spoke to the community and they said, if Isa in cradle can be a Nabi, and it is in Quran that here he is born and here he says, I am the Abdullah, I am the servant of Allah, wa ja'alani nabiyya, and Allah made me Nabi. If a boy in cradle can be Nabi, a boy at the age of 8, why he can't be Imam? Why he can't be Imam? And the main issue is that yes, if people make someone, then those age and the qualifications and everything, you are right. But when Allah says, وَجَعَلَنِي نَبِيًّا or وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً, we made them Imams. So when Allah makes them Imam, so then age is not required. It's Allah's decision. Then among the A'imma, none of other A'imma use the ilm-e imamat to that extent which Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salatu wasalam was compelled to use. You know, you are familiar with ilm-e imamat. Ilm-e imamat is a special knowledge and information at the disposal of Imam, which normally Imam don't use that. They have this luxury available to them that they can find anything, they can know anything, whatever they want. It's just like a password given to them. Use this and everything is there. Imam normally wouldn't bother to use that. They would use the just normal means of knowledge. Sometimes some of our Imam, as the Prophet or Imam, in order to make people believe in their nubuwwat or imamat, it's called mu'jiza. Then Nabi or Imam uses that special knowledge, special information. Prophet used it, Imam used it, but once a while, here and there, rarely. But Imam Muhammad Taqi Al Jawad used that ilm more than any other Imam. What was the reason? Because he has to prove now to his community that he is not just a child of age 8. He is Imam. And he can read the Lawh Mahfuz. And he has the ilm imamat. And when Imam received a big delegation of ulama who came from Iraq to visit Imam in Medina, to basically interview Imam and to ask him questions and to verify whether he is the Imam of the age or Imam of the time. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, sometime when people come and they say, Maulana, humne aapko alim rakhna hai as a resident alim, but we will take your interview. None of us are ready to for interview. Aap jahil log hamara interview lenge. That's what normally we Maulanas take the position. Who are you to come and take my interview or verify or take my imtihan? But Imam didn't say that. Imam didn't say that. Who are you to come and test my knowledge or verify whether I am truly Imam or not, and you are going to interview me? Imam said, no problem. Come. So these about 60, 70 senior ulama, they came from Iraq and from other parts of the Shi'i world. They visited Imam in Medina and they asked all sort of those difficult questions, whatever they could think of, that this is very complicated question. And Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, who was sitting at the age 8, would just spontaneously would give to the point answer and would make them speechless. And then they would recite takbir and they would say salawat, and meaning this was a very interesting kind of meeting. And then when these questions in fiqh and Quran and hadith and all these questions ended, then some of them, they asked Mawla, when I left my home, I had something in my heart. I had something on my mind that I will ask you. Can you answer me that question? Without asking. And Imam told him that, yes, this is how. At your home, you were at the door, your one foot was out, your one foot was still in the house, and at that time you thought about this question that I will ask. If he is truly Imam, he will answer, and this was the question, and this is the answer. So this is how Imam Muhammad Taqi Al Jawad was able to gather all these scattered sheep who were running around and going everywhere, and Imam now started bringing them back. And Imam alayhi salatu wasalam remained in this office for 17 years. For 17 years. Very crucial time of Imamat. Again, Ibn al-Riza is bringing all the Shias back in the tent of Imam Riza, in the tent of Imamat, in the tent of Ahlul Bayt, and preparing the ground for his son, Imam Ali al-Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam, who prepared again the ground for Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam. Recite his. So never imagine that the lives of our imams were the lives of luxury or comfort or convenience or any prestige. They walked on, इसको क्या कहते हैं आप कांटों को, thorns on thorns. They lived most difficult life. And this zulm and oppression was not committed to them only by their enemies. Unfortunately, it was done by their own followers and their community as well. But then, can you understand the pains of someone that who is getting from both sides, from inside and outside? How miserable experience is of someone that who is, कहते हैं दोनों तरफ से जो खा रहा, अपने भी और पराए भी. The enemies are enemies, but your own ones are also not less than enemies. And then when you get a wife like that, zulm balai zulm. हमारे आइमा की मजलूमियत ये भी है. इमाम हसन मुज्तबा की भी यही मुसीबत और इमाम मोहम्मद तकी की मुसीबत भी यही कि जालिम हुकूमत, जालिम अवाम, अपने मुखालिफ वैसे मुखालिफ, और घर के अंदर at least you have some expectations from your wife and your family. And Imam was a young man. Imam was a very handsome. Imam was very kind. A man whose title is Jawad, the generous one, with everyone. When he is generous with everyone, so how generous he was with his wife and with his children. You can imagine. A generous husband, a handsome husband, a kind husband, Imam of the time, Noor-e Khuda, and Farzande Rasool-e Khuda, and this badbakht wife, Ummul Fadl, she gets bribed by the uncle who is so-called this Khalifatul Muslimin, and Imam alayhi salatu wasalam was poisoned by his wife. A young man at the age 25. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam gets poisoned, and they say that Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was just losing his life, that is the time when you remember your family. That is the time when you remember your mother. That is the time when you remember your father. That is the time when you remember your brothers and sisters. That is the time when you remember your daughters, your sisters. They say Imam alayhi salatu wasalam turned his face toward Medina. Now Imam was in Baghdad, but Imam turns his face to Medina and says, जिसकी ना माँ है, ना बहन है, ना बेटी है, वह अब इस दुनिया से उठने वाला है, और वो मैयत बड़ी सूनी होती है जिस पे रोने के लिए ना माँ हो, ना बहन हो, ना बेटी हो. And Imam alayhi salatu wassalam at that time turns his face toward Medina and says, Assalamu alayka ya jaddati. Imam says, Salam to my Jadda Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha. Imam speaks to his grandmother Fatima Zahra, you were martyred and you were ghareeb and mazloom in Medina, and I am your son and I am being martyred here in Baghdad. Then they say Imam alayhi salatu wasalam turns his face toward Karbala, which was the practice of every Shaheed Imam, every Imam. Mawla, ठीक है मुझे जहर दिया गया, लेकिन 3 दिन का भूखा प्यासा तो नहीं हूं. मैं 3 दिन का भूखा प्यासा तो नहीं हूं, और मेरे साथ मेरी कोई बहनें नहीं हैं, मेरे साथ कोई मेरी बेटियां नहीं हैं, मेरे साथ मेरा कोई खानदान नहीं है. शहीद हूंगा तो अकेले ही हूंगा ना, और फिर मैं शहीद हूंगा तो दफन कर दिया जाऊंगा. लेकिन मौला मुझे आपकी गुर्बत पे रोना आता है, और मेरी गुर्बत और मेरी मजलूमियत आपकी मजलूमियत पे कुर्बान हो जाए کہ آپ 3 دن کے بھوکے اور پیاسے بھی تھے، اور آپ کے ساتھ زینب بھی تھی، آپ کے ساتھ ام کلثوم بھی تھی، آپ کے ساتھ بیٹیاں بھی تھیں، اور آپ دیار غربت میں اور ایک ویرانے میں شہید. انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون. لعنت اللہ علی قوم الظالمین وسیعلم الذین ظلموا ای منقلب ینقلبون. پروردگار ہماری اس قلیل سی عبادت کو قبول و منظور فرما. پروردگار اس مجلس کی بانی سسٹر نرگس کی اس عبادت اور اس کنٹریبیوشن اور اس خلوص نیت کو اپنی بارگاہ میں قبول و منظور فرما. پروردگار ان کی دعاؤں کو مستجاب فرما، ان کی حاجات کو پورا فرما، ان کے مرحومین کی مغفرت فرما، موجودین کو صحت و سلامتی عطا فرما. جتنے مومنین و مومنات مجلس میں حاضر ہوئے ہیں پروردگار سب کے مرحومین کی مغفرت فرما، موجودین کو صحت و سلامتی عطا فرما، بیماروں کو شفائے کامل و عاجل عطا فرما، دعاؤں کو مستجاب فرما، حاجات کو پورا فرما، مشکلات کو برطرف فرما. بالخصوص خدایا ہماری فیملیز میں، ہماری کمیونٹی میں مریض ہیں، کچھ بہت مریض ہیں. پروردگار ان سب کو تجھے واسطہ امام محمد تقی الجواد اور ان کی مظلومیت کا پروردگار سب کو صحت کامل و عاجل عطا فرما، سب کو شفائے کامل و عاجل عطا فرما. پروردگار ہمارے بچوں کی حفاظت فرما، ہمارے جوانوں کی حفاظت فرما، مومنین جہاں جہاں ہیں دنیا میں پروردگار سب کی حفاظت فرما. ہم سب کو صحیح معنوں میں یہ اہل بیت بننے کی توفیق عطا فرما، تاکہ ہمارے وقت کے امام سلطان عادل جلد سے جلد ظہور فرما سکیں، اور ان کے آنے سے ہماری جتنی مشکلات ہیں ہماری اور اس پوری دنیا کی پروردگار وہ حل ہوں، اور وہ خواب کے جو 1,24,000 نبی نے دیکھا اور وہ خواب جو ہمارے سارے معصومین نے دیکھا وہ شرمندہ تعبیر ہو، اور عدل اور انصاف کا دنیا میں بول بالا ہو، اور ظلم اور ستم کا اس دنیا سے قلع کما ہو. ایک صلوات پڑھیے بابا سے پڑھیں.